Berserk is not only the best manga ever written, it is also the last literary epic to be ever written. That's a bold claim that a manga that was adapted into an anime that is very popular in our modern culture is actually the conclusion of a literary genre that started thousands of years ago. No academic or literature expert, no academic or literary expert is even paying attention to manga and anime culture, which is a huge crime. Missing on the evolution and sometimes even the conclusion and peak of certain literary genres. And today that's what we will discuss. We will discuss one of the, if not the oldest genre in English literature, and how Berserk, the Japanese manga, concluded and reached the peak of that genre. Welcome everyone, Salaryman here. Again, a reminder of what we're trying to do in this channel. We are trying to approach manga and anime from a literary perspective and give it good analysis and comparisons with the big works of literature, trying to prove that it's not just hype, it's not just pop culture, it's not just cool or interesting, but it is also highly academic and highly influential on the way we approach the written word. And instead of waiting 100 years before we look back and we're like, oh, that was great literature, let's start teaching it to students at universities, just like we did with Shakespeare, just like we did with Oscar Wilde, just like we did with a million other writers. My goal is to actually get manga and anime to be a literature major at universities, in every college, right now, during our lifetime. And the only way to do that is to elevate the discourse a little bit, step back from how cool and fun it is, and start in on the literary elements and writing techniques. What's needed to qualify as an amazing work of art. That manga is Berserk. Berserk is known to be the best manga ever created. But when you think Berserk, you think crazy well illustrated panels, artwork that is visually and mind-blowing. But that's not why Berserk deserves to be told. Today we approach Berserk from a narrative perspective. The written word, characters, themes. Berserk is an epic. It's epic as an adjective, but also it's an epic as a literary genre. Not only that, it is, in my opinion, the last epic we might see for many generations. Today we will prove that together, and hopefully one day this will be on your kids' test, so pay attention. What is an epic? An epic is a special literary work with a topic larger than life. It cannot be about something mundane, like a random romantic relationship or a personal struggle. The topic has to be world-changing. It has to involve like demons, God, monsters, magic, fantasy, everything. So the topic needs to be, like I said, world-changing, larger-than-life topic. Then we also need to have a central character or characters that are extremely complex and fall on the ends of the spectrum. We need a hero that is beyond amazing, that is just an epic hero, as they say. That's where the word comes from. Someone who is unique, who is special. Usually, someone blessed or cursed by God. And finally, the length of the epic cannot be the usual structure of beginning, climax, ending, and everyone goes home. It needs to have more nuance than that. Like, it needs to have very winded setup, world building. It introduces whatever calamity or struggle And then it doesn't stop there, it keeps increasing the level of calamity or struggle. And during that time, the hero keeps growing and rising up to the occasion and facing those calamities, those struggles, those literal and metaphorical monsters outside and inside himself, leading to a conclusion which is traditionally not a happy one, or depends where you're standing, but let's just say the hero does not get the girl and a crown and a cake and a chest full of gold. Usually the hero ends up sacrificing himself or sacrificing everything for the greater good. Now, ironically, the oldest piece of old English literature that we can find intact, relatively intact, is actually an epic. And it's called Beowulf. Again, it's called Beowulf. Beowulf. And remember that name because it's very important. Beowulf is so good, is so well made, that it survived for centuries and made its way to pop culture in our lifetime, where you can find several attempts, where you can even find a movie that had, I believe, Anthony Hopkins and Angelina Jolie in that movie. And Beowulf tells a very interesting story about a larger-than-life topic, a medieval civilization story, and a character that is the definition of an epic hero, and his name is the name of the literary work, which is Beowulf. Now, something very interesting you need to know about that man, Beowulf. Beowulf is not only similar to Guts from Berserk. Beowulf's nickname was the first Berserker. A Berserker is a knight or a warrior that depends mainly on his physical strength, on his prowess, on his fighting abilities. He's huge, he's brave, he goes in head first, and he is not afraid to fight anything or anyone, from a man to a literal dragon. So, we have the first Berserker, and then in Berserk, we have Guts, the last Berserker, the last perfect Berserker we might see for a long time before someone brings another epic on that level. So, as you can see, we have correlation between the characters. We have the first Berserker and the last Berserker, but Berserk is like the antithesis of Beowulf. Beowulf and Berserk have similar events, have similar pacing, have very similar characters, but the purpose and point of Beowulf is to show that heroism works. The hero saves the day, which is exactly what you think when you are young, when you are naive, when you don't know the ways of the world. And in this case, literature is that kid. Literature is that young, naive boy or girl that doesn't understand that the world is more complex than hero beats villain, everyone is happy. Berserk, on the other hand, is the older, wiser literature that knows you can do your best and things still wouldn't always work out. So in Beowulf, the story goes as follows. We have a king, and the king has like a dining hall or like celebration hall where he spends time with his men, his entertainers, the closest people to him. And then we start getting attacked by a monster called Grendel. Grendel is a sea monster. He kills people, he's destroying the fun, he's making things unstable. The king calls on Beowulf to come from another, let's say, sister nation and solve the problem, as Beowulf is the first berserker, the only man that can go toe-to-toe with a literal sea monster. Beowulf does not disappoint. He comes over, he saves the day. But then the stakes get higher when Grendel's mother starts attacking, trying to take revenge. But Beowulf is a hero, and heroes win. So he also manages to slay Grendel's mother, and this first part of Beowulf concludes with his 100% victory over the two monsters, saving the kingdom that called for his help. And just like in Berserk, he is a hero for hire, so to say. So he gets paid in treasure and gold and valuable things. Goes back to his kingdom, gifts everything he made to his king. He is a loyal knight to his king. Now, this should be happening in Scandinavia. Settings is around countries. The second part of Beowulf, I'm of course telling you the story in an extremely summarized way, because today's focus is a little bit on Berserk rather than Beowulf. The second part shows us an aged, older, wiser Beowulf who now the king of the place where he lives, a beloved king. And then they get attacked by another monster. This time it's a literal dragon or drake, as mentioned in Beowulf. Takes a loyal sidekick and they head to the dragon's lair to fight him. They win. Spoiler alert. They kill the dragon, but Beowulf is old and he's critically injured, and he sadly does not survive. Yet he is given the funeral of heroes. His people send him off with all the treasures and gold that they could get their hands on from the dragon's lair. And that concludes Beowulf. It works out for the hero. He lives a long life, happy amongst his people, succeeds again and again and again, and even when he fails, he gets an honorable death, a great memory, and centuries later we're talking about the guy who is, of course, fictional. There were hopefully no dragons running around back then. Now, let's come to Berserk. Berserk is extremely similar, except nothing works out. Our last Berserker, Guts, possess almost the same qualities and strength points as our first Berserker, Beowulf. But instead of being blessed by the gods, he is cursed by the gods. Because in this setting, this time in Berserk, everything except our hero is flawed. Actually, even our hero is severely flawed. The loyal king that Beowulf was loyal to in Berserk is Griffith, a demented, disloyal, ambitious leader. Guts, instead of being an honorable man that's gonna grow up to be a king, he is just a young, very violent, hero for hire, mercenary in the band of the Hawks. Unhealthy relationship with his leader, rather than just being a loyal knight. It's an unhealthy relationship full of friendships, complexes. He's just not your sane, extremely amazing, epic character. Yet the topic fits the epic narrative. It's a larger-than-life topic. It's the eclipse. It's hand gods and demons. You see a lot of monsters. It's world-changing. You have the element of causality, which is oppressive, because in Beowulf we had Wyrd, which is fate, and you fulfill that fate, and it's a beautiful thing. In Berserk we have the evil of that, which is causality, which is not something you fulfill. It's something that gets fulfilled whether you like it or not. It is extremely oppressive rather than enlightening and of ambition like fate in Beowulf. And also, Berserk discusses very uncomfortable truth. Everyone in the anime community agrees that Griffith is a major, figure. He's just the worst. Which I agree with you. His actions are extremely bad. They are the worst. But in comparison to the world of anime, which is a little bit held back by a lot of limitations, commercial limitations. But if you think about it, he's just realistic. That is what insane warlords do. Everything that he did, from sacrificing his people to assaulting Casca to betraying Guts, that's literally what would happen in real life. Because again, Berserk is a realistic epic. It's not a fantasy epic. It's just a little bit realistic. And I know, how can it be realistic with monsters and magic and so on? No, the character aspect of it is extremely realistic. Someone sat down and said, what if we had an epic, but I wrote the people the way they actually might be in real life? And that's how you got Berserk. That's the ugly aspect of Berserk. How would people actually behave in these situations rather than the fake perfectionism that's in Beowulf, where people are loyal and loving and brave. Again, literature was very young. This is centuries ago. This is maybe the first work of literature we could get our hands on in Old English language. While Berserk is someone that learned their lesson, someone that knows about life. Literature is not young and silly anymore. It's older, wiser, and knows how the world works. So at the end of the day, Berserk is the last epic. Guts is the last Berserker. We should be proud of that. In every literature book, in every literary major student, when they start learning about the history of English literature and they start with Beowulf, there should be a page right next to it about Berserk and how it is mirroring that beautiful work of art in our modern times. And we should not only think of Berserk as a visual novel, because it is not just a visual novel. The visuals really help. But believe me, even if someone printed a version of Berserk that is just written words, you would still enjoy it the same. Because that's how good it is built and constructed thematically, plot-wise, character-wise, and character development-wise. It is no joke, and it should not be treated as such. And that's why, despite relatively failing anime adaptations, it still stands as the best manga ever written, because its strength comes from its literary prowess and just professionalism. And unironically, the writer, the creator, the mangaka behind Berserk passes away before giving us a satisfying conclusion, which makes Berserk even more epic, even more realistic, more imperfect, which what it always was supposed to be. An imperfect epic for an imperfect world. Thank you everyone for attending the lecture. Please like and subscribe, and tell us in the comment what other of manga and anime do we need